This right here is Samsung's Galaxy A8S. It's a new phone that was released only about a week ago in China, and it is Samsung's first phone to have a hole in the screen. So it's following that new trend. It has a 24 megapixel front-facing camera with an f2.0 aperture. The screen on it is not one of those really high-end ones from Samsung. So it's not an AMOLED panel or Super AMOLED, it's just an IPS, and overall it's a above average screen when I compare it to the likes of, say, the View 20 that I just reviewed. This phone right here is powered by the Snapdragon 710, that's a mid-range chipset. My version has 6 GB of RAM and 128 GB of storage, non-expandable. So let's take a look at what you get in the box. You get a Type-C to USB cable in white. You get some earphones there, the budget kind of cheaper ones, but it does have a remote on it at least, so you can control the audio through that. And then we get a Qualcomm Quick Charge 2 charger, so it's 9 volts max. It's not the 12 volts 1.5 amps that you normally get with Qualcomm's Quick Charge 3, which the chipset supports. Then we get a SIM tool and also a case. That case has another TPU Clear Style 1, so it covers all the buttons, protects the camera, and overall it will do the job as your first case straight out of the box. So the rear of the phone is made of glass. It is very slippery. That's probably why they included that case in the box there. We've got a rear fingerprint reader, a dual tone, single tone LED flash actually. I thought it was dual, but on closer inspection it seems to only have just the single flash in there. And a 3 camera setup on the rear. So we have the main sensor, which is 24. That's the one with the blue around it. And then the one at the top is a 10 megapixel sensor. Up the top of the phone, you'll find the dual antenna lines. The frame, the housing around it, feels a lot and looks a lot like the Samsung Galaxy S8, the Samsung Galaxy S9. It's just the same kind of DNA they're sharing there, the same style. And there's, of course, a secondary mic they use for noise cancellation. On the right-hand side, you will find the volume up and down and power buttons. They are made of metal and they have a good feel to them, and they also do not rattle around. On the left side, our dual nano SIM tray, it does have a rubber gasket around it, and then a button that is dedicated to Bixby. And then along the bottom, you can see the 2 antenna lines, a single loudspeaker, so the earpiece does not house a secondary loudspeaker in it. It doesn't have that function. The Type-C port, and then our main microphone. So this is why Samsung included the Type-C headphones, because there is no 3.5mm headphone jack on this, sadly. Now with a keen eye, you would have noticed that the white isn't quite uniform here around the top of the bezels, and most importantly around that camera too. You'll notice that it's not perfect. It's not a perfect white, and when you have a solid color, you will see the difference there, that it has this shadow around it. So it's slightly darker around the edges, and it's just not uniformed, but it's not as bad as, for example, the View 20 screen. As you can see here, so on the right of the screen, that is the A8S, and now we have the Honor View 20 on the left. You can see it's even worse, and we get an added little bit of light leakage right on that corner just there. You can see where it's extra bright. And you can clearly see here the difference in the bezels. So again, on the left, it's the View 20, and the Samsung Galaxy A8S is on the right of the screen with a larger top bezel, and the border that is around that front-facing camera is also quite a bit larger there. So to me, overall, this build quality is very good. It's in fact better than the Honor View 20. This one here is just a little bit more refined. The edges feel a little bit better in hand. Yes, it is a slippery phone, and I'm pretty sure it's going to be very fragile too with that glass on the rear, so you should use that case really when you get it straight away out of the box to save yourself from any damage. Now, the screen has larger bezels, as I pointed out, versus the View 20. When you have a look at them side by side, you can clearly see that the View 20 there, yes, it does have slightly smaller bezels. But the better screen overall is actually the Samsung's here. And probably not a surprise to people, but being a Samsung screen, that it would be a little bit better. Slightly brighter, it's about 100 lux brighter at 530 versus the 430 approximately that you get on the Honor View 20. The gamma is also much better here. It's about 2.2, which is almost spot on, maybe 2.1, but that is really good. It's an IPS panel, so it doesn't quite look as good, of course, as the premium models out there, which will have deeper blacks. But the blacks on this, as you can see, what I'm looking at, and even what is being displayed on the video watching, they are quite deep. So this is good. This is another positive of the screen. So overall, I feel it's not a bad screen that I've gone with. Yes, it does have a little bit of that ununiformed color distribution with the whites with solid colors just around, you can see there. And then, of course, as I pointed out, around the camera. But besides that, it's really not a bad screen at all. And a good brightness of that 530 lux. Under display settings, you will also find this, which I particularly like. This is the screen zoom, so you can change the scaling and the font size to your own personal preference. It's good to see a lot of manufacturers are now including this option, because with many phones, you just never had this choice. At the time of my review here, the phone is shipping with Android 8.1. I was really hoping that this was going to have Android 9. I'm pretty sure it was advertised having Android Pie. It has a security patch level of December the 1st, so it's only a month out or so that's not bad at all. It also comes with very few bloatware apps, just this right here, and a lot of people probably won't even consider this as bloat. So that's it, which is really good considering most of the Chinese phones I review, they are cram-packed full of so many extras you have to uninstall, but not here. So I've got a slightly different icon set here, the way they've got it looking, the UI. Now I'm not going to go into a lot of detail. You've got Samsung's Samsung's Knox on here, Bixby, their AI assistant, Samsung Pay. You've got all that sort of stuff on there if you like it. That's all been covered by many other people in so much detail. I don't really need to go into that. What matters to me, and probably you too, is performance. Does it perform well? Well, not really. It's very average, the performance here, and this kind of surprised me because I've used other phones with the Snapdragon 710 and I found them to be okay, but this seems to just need a little bit more tweaking, optimization. I've got the 6GB of RAM version, so with 8GB it may perhaps be a little bit smoother. But you'll notice here, even recent apps, it's just not as smooth as it should be. It's running below at times 30 frames per second. You just see a little bit of animation stutters here and there when you're going through, you're multitasking. When you're exiting out of apps, it's not as fluid as it should be for this chipset. I know it's not a high-end chipset. We're reaching its limits here. When you do push it really heavy, you will see that. And even sometimes when I was installing an app at the same time and also using the keyboard, I'm using Google's Gboard at the moment, I even noticed some lag with that, which was really disappointing to see. That should not be happening. So your Antutu score, that comes out as expected for this chipset, perfectly fine there. And same goes for the internal storage speeds. These are very good actually, almost 500 reads and 200 writes, sequential, and both the random reads and writes are also very good. Now GPS works okay. The reason why I say okay is I did notice that when I was moving around that the accuracy would often jump up to 6, 7 and even 9 meters, and it wouldn't use all of the satellites that were around. Now most mobile phones will not lock onto every single satellite, but this one, just compared to other phones, seems to use a lot less and doesn't seem quite as accurate as it could or should be. Wireless speeds and the range, no issues here. It's performing as it should. It's quick, the wireless, and also the range is very good. No problems with that. Now, you might have just seen when I swiped as well. Look at that animation stutter. That is actually pretty slow when it was doing that. Now it's better, but that is something that you'll see often with this phone. It's just that random sort of lag and stutter. And these are the LTE speeds there. So 21 up and down. It all depends, of course, on your carrier, but no issues using this phone here in Spain. Good reception. This phone also has Google's Wide Vine Level 1. So this means Netflix will run in resolutions over standard definition. So this is good. Now I've been using the phone and plugging it in, and that keeps resetting my battery stats, of course, but it is looking very good. In my testing, I've been able to do, for example, 1 hour of Netflix or Amazon Prime streaming or YouTube, and you're only losing about 8% battery life. So it is looking very good. It's looking like you'd be able to get at least over 10 hours of on-screen time with this, which is great. Now, to fully charge this battery, which is the 3,400 milliamp hour battery, you're looking at just over 2.5 hours. I mean, it's not the fastest, but it's still fine, the kind of speeds we are getting. Now to demonstrate the face unlocking, which is fast, but not as fast as other phones. I'll just quickly demonstrate, see how long that took. So that was about a second or so. It's not bad, but sometimes it can be a little slow. It all depends on, I guess, the lighting conditions and things like that. So overall, the performance of it is good. That's decent. It's just not going to be the fastest out there. The same goes for the fingerprint reader. So the fingerprint reader on the rear here, you need to just touch it and it's always on, then it unlocks. That only takes about a second. So that is very quick, which is great. So there we go. I just touched it and that was 1 second or under 1 second. So about half a second. Audio quality. So no 3.5mm headphone jack. So for some people, that's going to be a deal breaker. But you can use Bluetooth. There's a way around it. They do have that included headset in there. Now, the voice call quality I find to be excellent. It's good. No problems with it whatsoever. So that is fine. Now, we've only got that single loudspeaker. Sadly, this does not double as a loudspeaker, which I feel is a bit of an error. They could have made that a secondary loudspeaker, but they decided not to for whatever reason, cost saving probably. Now the speaker output from the downwards firing speaker here, it's fine. I wish it was a little louder, but overall I think depending on the content you're looking at, the loudness is going to be okay. But here's that sample. So gaming performance, we know the Snapdragon 710 is not a high-end flagship chipset. It's a mid-ranger, but it's not a bad one. The GPU's got enough power to run all your latest games with fluid frame rates, and they're all going to be playable. You're going to have no issues there. So this is PUBG on the high frame rate setting, the HD setting. Let's see how it runs. Managed to get a couple of kills without any issues, and the frame rate is keeping up there. You see a few little stutters and some occasional little lag as you expect, but with the HD setting, the high frame rate, you can see that it is quite fluid, it's smooth, and whoa, you can see a bit of lag just then. See that? Little bit of stutter comes into play, but overall this is very playable. You could of course lower the settings if you're concerned about that lag. And of course, how could I not mention this? Look at this big, massive border we get on the left hand side because of the camera. Now this seems to happen with just some games. Some games will fully stretch out, but a lot of content it will do this. So this is something that Samsung's going to have to address with software. I'm sure they can just stretch it right out like everyone else does. Or perhaps because this phone currently is not supported by PUBG. Looking now at the stock camera app, so this is pretty straightforward. It's exactly like other Samsung phones. It's very similar to my Samsung Galaxy S9 Plus that I have as my main phone, but we've got this added option here. So that's similar to when you swap over to the 2x lens on the Samsung Galaxy S9 Plus, but they've just done it different there with the icon there. So it's showing you've got like a wide shot, then the one that goes in. So it's a 2x zoom. It's using that 10 megapixel lens. And that'll start off, you can see, ×2, and then you are able to go and just zoom right up if you want to. Now, swiping up or down on the screen, you've got all the different modes here. So you've got the beauty modes, you've got live focus with the blurred backgrounds that you can change after you've already taken the shot. Pro mode, not a lot of settings in here at all. So we just got white balance and then ISO. ISO goes only up to 800. Now, I find the cameras in this phone to be a little disappointing. The focus on the rear camera is very hit and miss. It reminds me of the old Xiaomi phones. They should have gone with a sensor, I feel, with dual pixel phase detection and not just phase detection. But anyway, here are some samples from the camera. Here's a sample from the front-facing camera. So we get a fixed focus here. There's no autofocus on it. A little bit of a crop. In fact, no crop really with this. You can shoot in an odd resolution with the screen's 19:9 aspect ratio. It's something like 2038 by 1088 max res. And you can see that there is no electronic image stabilization with the front-facing camera. So it's going to be a little bit rocky. The audio quality I find to be good, and the image quality as well is good. It's fine. I don't really have too many complaints. I find that it's okay. It's not too soft. It's not too sharp. And having the fixed focus means we don't have that focus issue with it pulsing in and out like I do with my Galaxy S9 Plus. Here's video now with the A8S, and you can see it does not have any electronic or optical image stabilization in 4K. If you turn on 1080p, then it is smoothed out quite nicely. It does an okay job. Now you will notice that the focus, I have been having issues with it, that it hasn't really been that good. It can be very slow. See, it's not, there we go, it's locked onto my hand now. And sometimes it can be off, like now. And there we go, it's got it again. And overall, pretty disappointing quality here. If only they could really enable that electronic image stabilization here with 4K, it would make it a lot more usable. The mics, the audio from the mics I feel is acceptable, it's fine, it's not bad. And overall, if you use a steady cam or a gimbal or something like that, then you can get usable 4K quality from this. It's just that focus at times does annoy me. And this is the front-facing camera in low light. So you can see it gets a lot more grain. The frame rate seems to be okay. The viewfinder, that when you are using the front-facing camera, gets a huge amount of lag because it's constantly always trying to brighten things up. Low light, not amazing quality. We're seeing a lot more grain as expected. This is very challenging conditions for any smartphone camera. At least the frame rate is keeping up there. Okay guys, so we have a very decent build on this. It feels premium in hand. It's very similar to, say, the Samsung Galaxy S8. The build quality, so good there. The screen is not perfect. It's an average screen. It is IPS, and they've made some compromises, really, I feel, with it and with the hole that they've put in there. Hopefully when we have the flagships, we're going to have a much better screen than this one. But of course, those ones from Samsung will be using their Super AMOLED panels. So the front-facing camera can produce an okay photo. You get the portrait photos and things like that. And overall, it is good. The face unlocking is fast for the most part, just like the fingerprint unlocking, very quick there. It's running Android 8.1. It's not the latest version of Android, and it doesn't have the latest security patch either. So hopefully Samsung is going to up their game with that and release some new patches, bring us up to Android Pie, but also fix and improve the performance of this, which I find truly to be super disappointing on this, because I have used Snapdragon 710 mobile phones before. This one is running choppy. You run into lag, and I've even seen as far as lag with input when you're typing. So I want to put something in Google search, and I was installing something at the same time. There was a noticeable lag. Everything sort of froze up for a second, and then the text all appeared again. And that to me is completely unacceptable considering the price of this here. The camera quality is also a letdown. It will often overexpose on the rear, as you've seen with my photo of the camera with the clock tower there from the cameras. That it overexposed it a little bit there. The focus can be all over the place. It has very poor focus. Samsung, in my opinion, should have gone with one of their 12 megapixel dual pixel phase detection autofocus cameras. This one has only phase detection autofocus and very hit and miss. In video, it can be a real pain. The video quality, so we don't have in 4K any electronic image stabilization. The microphone quality is definitely good. It's fine. It's a lot better than the likes of the Honor View 20 that I have only just recently reviewed. But I feel that if you're going to be spending the same kind of amount of money that both of these phones cost, that you probably want to go for the View 20 Pro. So make sure you check out my review of that one, which is right up here. And let me know down in the comments, what do you prefer? Do you prefer a teardrop notch, a wide notch, normal notch, or do you think that this is the way to go with the hole in the screen that we're starting to see now? Should we have more phones with holes in the screen? Is this the best option, or do you think pop-up cameras or sliders is the way to go? Let us know in the comments, and thank you so much for watching this review. Bye for now.